Uncle Doug. I don't know, or Ernie. I don't know what your attitude towards tapas are. Like if you enjoy tapas, if you enjoy a nice Mediterranean lunch, a tapa, a pincho, something like that, something light, but with enough substance to get you through to a typically Mediterranean 11 p.m. dinner.
Right. And when I eat tapas, I typically like to do so with about 5,000 friends.
Oh, well, that's very social. It's a very social meal, I find.
And I'm getting there. I'm up to 3.
Dan, do you like tapas?
Well, I do, but I think that there are better and worse versions of that.
Say the word.
Just a bit of bread and a bit of fish probably isn't enough for my taste. But
yeah. Say the word. Say it. Tapas.
I won't. I'm afraid I won't.
But and before
agree
you
to
add
disagree.
Before you add us, we know that the S's are not pronounced "tha" in Spanish, in Spain. So just don't add us.
Yeah, we have lisps here.
That's right.
Yeah,
we're doing our impression of Moses.
Yes, Moses.
Anywho, I like to talk about the Bible stories. It's a thing that makes me happy. I usually draw from the Old Testament. It is an easy go-to.
Yeah. That's where all the action sequences are.
But I decided this time that we would jump into the New Testament. Easter's coming up.
Yep.
And I decided that we wanted some Jesus. Doug, you've already covered Easter, so I couldn't really do that.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed. So you guys go and listen to Doug's explication of that on episode. I am not as prepared as the other uncles. No, so I wanted to talk a bit, as you guys have hinted at, about the original fire festival that was the feeding of the thousands with just 5 loaves and 2 fish.
I would love if there's a 2,000-year-old Instagram post of a styrofoam container with just a single piece of bread and a little fish on it.
Yes, indeed. That's what we're talking about.
And not a lot of people know that this is the only biblical miracle to have occurred in the Mediterranean. Or, I'm sorry, forget it. The Caribbean.
Okay.
I've got tapas on the brain.
God damn it! You need to eat 1 fewer tapa. And then you would be okay. The problem is that it comes with wine usually, and then
the sangria. I'm a little loopy.
That's fine.
I'm
with
day
me.
drinking.
Okay, so here's the thing. I went to find this. What I do is I Google phrases like important Bible stories and just sort of go through. And I found this website that had all of these different...
Was that a Google search with 0 results?
No. No, indeed. But what's great is that it always pulls up these Christian sites that are like, you should read these to your kids. And I'm always like, no, you should not. Are you insane?
You should let your audio uncles read those to your kids, and then they won't be bothered by them anymore.
Right. Yes, indeed. Anyway, I found one reference to this thing. And here's the deal. I am kind of covering more than just that one story because I'm covering Matthew 14. Now, Matthew 14 has the loaves and the fishes and Jesus walking on water. We're going to get to both of them. But these are all stories that are covered in all 4 of the Gospels. Or rather, some of them are covered in all 4 of the Gospels. And it's confusing, and I'm not going to do a full Uncle Doug style, point by point. I did start to do a point-by-point comparison, and then I was like, why would we do this?
Then you realized you have a life?
I don't, but I did. I have enough. I wanted more of it, so I gave up on that.
Dan is lifeless.
Yeah, exactly. So as we've discussed with these Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, not written by anyone by the apostles, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John,
right?
And written well after the fact, anywhere from 50
the
to
quote
100
unquote
years.
fact. Yes,
right. Yes, the idea of the fact. Mark's came first chronologically, even though Matthew's comes first in the book. So Mark's is probably is source material for the rest of them. I'm just going to start, but Matthew is the most interesting one. There are some interesting, and actually John's is the best written, as is always the case, because John was the one that was written the last,
right.
and is kind of he actually cared about. Whoever wrote it.
Yeah, he
actually,
brought in some other screenwriters to help punch it up.
Yes, indeed, as we've learned. So we'll talk about some of the differences. Let's start with the basics, at least in the gospel according to Matthew. And that's why they say that, is because according to these different guys, different shit happened.
Right.
Right.
In the gospel according to Matthew, Herod has just killed John the Baptist, serving his head up on a plate to his brother's wife's daughter, if you can keep that straight.
As you do.
Yep.
And Jesus was upset about that. He had heard what happened and decided to go for a private boat ride by himself. Wanted to go to a solitary place. However,
just clear his head. You just want to get out in the water and clear your head. Or your friend's head.
And go and go off to a secluded part of the world. Now, he's on the Sea of Galilee. It is not a big lake. It's definitely not a sea.
That's right.
It is a lake.
It's a middling lake.
Correct. It's an
aspirational title.
Sure, exactly. And Jesus decides to go. However, the crowds see him take off on the boat and run after him so that they're all in place by the time he lands, which kind of sucks. Just row all the way across the damn lake.
No, it's only like a quarter mile across.
Well, it's a few miles across, but that's okay.
Don't correct me.
I looked it up. So yes, Jesus lands and sees a large crowd and has compassion on them and heals their sick. Now, in other versions of the gospel, basically what happened, it happens in different ways. In some versions, the apostles had all just been sent out to go do shoeless missionary work. They weren't allowed to take anything, and they came back and reported on it, and the crowds followed them home like puppies, and that's how the crowd formed.
Because they didn't change cars in a parking garage like you're supposed to if you don't want to be followed.
And in other so like in at least one version, the crowds had all just sort of followed the apostles all home, and Jesus gathered all of the crowd onto his boat, or not all the crowd, sorry, all of his apostles onto his boat so that they could all get away from the crowd, and the crowd followed them, and were just there when they.
That's the problem with trying to hide from a crowd on a lake where you can see the other shore.
Right? Yeah, exactly. When you can see the boat the whole time, everybody just follows the boat.
And can I just say something about these crowds form all the time in these biblical stories, right?
Yeah,
people were living a subsistence lifestyle, right? They were barely scraping by. They don't have leisure time. They don't have time to become a crowd, right? They're like milking the termite or whatever if you can fucking eat in Leviticus. And, it's time consuming. You can't just wander here and there around a small lake.
In fairness, Mark, there was nothing else to do. You either were feeding yourself or nothing. Those were the two options.
Or dead.
I choose feeding myself.
Well, no, I mean, if you happen to have a good day fishing one day and you've got, now you've got extra food for 3 days, what are you going to do?
That's true. You don't have, refrigeration to,
That's what was called rich.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, this large crowd, and we do mean large, as Doug hinted at earlier, is there when Jesus lands, no matter which version of this you take.
Right.
And he takes pity on them. In some versions, he takes pity on them by healing their sick. In other versions, he takes pity on them by teaching them. Oh, yay.
Oh, there's a bit of a disparity between those two things.
Right.
Yeah. You know what sick people love? A lecture.
Yeah, it's the best.
That's called Trump care.
Yes, indeed. So then the apostles start to get worried toward the end of the day. As you say, Mark, the apostles are like, it's getting late, and these guys are still here, and nobody's eaten anything. You should send them away so that they can go to the villages and buy or find food.
Okay,
and eat a rat.
These are crazy, stupid people.
Yeah.
Would they have just starved to death if no one had, shooed them off?
Correct.
Okay.
That is apparently what would have happened.
100% factual truth.
Jesus says to his apostles, at least in 3 of the Gospels, well, then just feed them. They don't need to go away. You feed them. To which, in a couple of the Gospels, at least one apostle says, that would cost more than half a year's salary. I can't afford that. Fuck you.
What did an apostle make? Like what salary?
Yeah, they have wages. You think that these people are just, eating the sheep that they're raising. But no, there are wages, my friend.
Can you measure income in smelt?
You can.
The wages of sin.
Anywho, I'm gonna, I could switch to John here. John had an interesting thing. Basically,
did John blame the Jews?
well, I'm not sure what that comes from.
The Jews took your food. Oh wait, we're all Jews.
John turns this into a lovely little learning experience for his disciples. Philip says, "Where should we buy bread for these people to eat?" Jesus says to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" As a test. It was a test. It was a trick. And Philip fails the test. He says, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. Just a bite." And then another disciple, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" Really good point. Why did you even bring the boy over?
I know, right? Exactly.
So in that version, they eat the boy?
They do. They cut the boy into small pieces. Jesus says...
Well, wait, Philip wasn't wrong. It would take a lot of money to feed all these people.
Here's the thing. It's 5,000 people, or if you read some of the Gospels, it's 5,000 people that don't include the women and children.
Well, the Bible could literally say in parentheses below its title, does not include women and children.
Right, except that probably at least doubles the count.
Right, exactly.
So now we've got 10,000 people hungry, just staring at Jesus going, "What do we do?" So Jesus, of course, we all know this part. He breaks up the loaves with his hands and says, "Go feed everybody with this." And in some versions, he has everybody sit down. He makes the crowd sit down in groups of 50 and 100 or just of 50. Great. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we're all divided into groups of 50. And then he sends his disciples out with pieces of bread and fish. In Matthew, I don't even think it talks about the people eating the fish. They just eat the bread. But I think that's just an oversight.
Well, the other thing is it doesn't really mention the species of fish, right? And I think if we knew that better, maybe it's less. If it was a whale, it was 2 whale sharks.
Yeah,
right.
I highly doubt it was like orange roughy.
I got news for you. It's at least in John, it says 2 small fish.
Okay, gotcha. 2 small fish. So it wasn't a whale shark.
Sardines.
Well, remember, these are fish drawn, I assume, from the
Sea of Galilee.
The Sea of Galilee.
The Lake of Galilee.
That's right.
Rainbow trout.
It's not great, whatever it is. Somehow, and it doesn't mention how this happens or anything, but somehow 10,000 people, 5,000 people, humans, plus a bunch of women and children, whatever they turn out to be, get fed, and then they bring back...
The non-people.
Right. Yep. And then they bring back baskets of leftovers. There's a bunch of a bunch of the bread that wasn't eaten. So, yeah, they actually literally had a bunch of 12 or 7 baskets. I forget how many baskets of leftovers. Here's the problem. I also read the miracle of the feeding of the 4,000 because he did this fucking twice. He did the same gag twice.
He did with
every
fish?
good savior knows better than to do the same miracle twice.
If your powers are you can turn water into wine and feed multitudes, the fact that there wasn't a giant crowd around him forever is just a hole in the narrative.
Also, if that's possible, why have there ever been poor people ever?
Right.
Just fucking feed everybody.
Right.
Why are you letting anyone starve, you fucking dick of a deity?
Because he was you can't give away government largesse to everybody all the time.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly. That would be Jesus socialism.
Mm-hmm. Next came the miracle of the bootstraps. But nobody had boots.
Yes, indeed. So everybody is amazed, and Jesus goes up on a mountain to think about what he's done, and somehow, for some reason, he either sends or his disciples get back into a boat and go out into the water. And it's the middle of the night, and for whatever reason, like, there's no explanation.
Out in the night?
What?
Right.
Shut up, and let me tell the goddamn story.
There's no tapas in the water.
So the disciples get on the boat, set off across the lake, leaving Jesus for whatever reason. And then a strong wind starts blowing, and Jesus sees that they are straining against the oars to try and get wherever it is they're going. And Jesus walks out to chat with them on the water.
This is that particular miracle.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
My favorite version of it. Wait, which one is it? It's not that one. It's not John. I'm not sure which version. God damn it. But my favorite version of it is that he's walking on the water, and they look, and he's about to walk past, and they all go, "What the fuck?" And they all freak out. Which the wording of he's about to walk past them, as though he's casually strolling, like he happens to just be in the vicinity.
Oh,
in the
hello.
area,
Yeah.
But it's not, was my favorite thing in the world.
Oh, hello, apostles. You catch me unawares.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, I didn't know you would be here.
Well, you know
what
what
are you doing here?
The
Isn't
trouble
it
they're
strange
having. Go ahead.
Oh, it's just so strange how you always run into people on a lake.
It is. It is.
Yeah, well, the trouble they're having, and I don't know that you guys know this, but this is a true fact, is that the trouble they're having on the water is the origin of you do not go swimming for a good hour after you eat, right?
Right. After you've gorged yourself on magic loaves and fishes.
Now, I always heard it was
tapas.
because you'd cramp up. I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was because a itinerant Judean carpenter would come wandering around.
Yeah, exactly. Only the most interesting version of this story, of this part of the story, comes from Matthew, where the Lord comes and they all freak out and say, "It's a ghost!" Which is great, because then they pull off Jesus' mask and it was Old Man Carruthers the whole time. It's a ghost, they say, but Jesus immediately says to them, "Don't worry, it is I, your Savior. Do not be afraid." And Peter goes, "Is it really you?" And he says, "If it is you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus goes, "All right, come on then." And Peter walks out onto the water.
That's right.
And is doing pretty good. And then he sees the wind and gets a little scared. And like Luke Skywalker being distracted, he starts to sink into the water
Slowly
like a TIE
starts
fighter.
to sink into the water.
And it's like, Jesus, help, help, help. And Jesus grabs him and pulls him up and then castigates him for doubting.
Oh, Peter.
Oh, Peter.
So I remember being young and religious and what's the word? Stupid.
Yeah.
And I remember like thinking about this story as, obviously literally true. So I was trying to okay, does Jesus kind of walk on kind of a little bit of substrate in the water? So that like the waves don't or is it like walking on a waterbed? It's just like whoa.
It's very wobbly. One can never know. None of the Gospels help us out with that particular thing. So then Jesus asks him why he doubted, and calls him of little faith. Which it is weird that he would doubt when he is actually not only seeing someone walk on the water, but himself walking on the water.
Right.
But then anyway, they go across to the other side of the lake, to a different town. And a whole bunch of people are waiting there for them, and he heals a bunch of sick people.
Well, I'm gonna step in here really quick and offer an in real time correction before we get attacked.
Okay.
Uncle Dan said that Luke Skywalker started to lose concentration, and the TIE fighter started to slip back into the water. When in fact it was an X-wing.
It was an X-wing. Okay. You're right. That's what I meant to say.
Oh my fucking God! Can you imagine if we hadn't corrected that?
Oh my God. Yeah, up between when I said that and when you just made the correction, somebody's mind was just steam was coming out of their
There was
ears.
a disturbance in the force out there among our listeners.
Why would Luke Skywalker have been trying to extricate a bad guy,
an enemy spacecraft
an enemy
that is in many
spacecraft.
ways superior to the to the X-wing fighter? Much longer range.
Okay. Anyway, so that's Jesus walking on water and giving food to people. No word on what the theme of the story is other than he was miracles.
Yeah, and then it's just kind of the litany of his lesser powers. He can bring people back to life. And again, I am completely stealing this from Patton Oswalt. But he can bring people back from the dead and also make lunch for a lot of people. It just seems like a minor power.
Well, yeah, but he only did the most, making food out of nothing is actually pretty fucking impressive. And he only did it twice in a hungry time in a hungry part of the world, right?
Yeah, and he only brought one person back from the dead in a place where most people were dead before lunch.
Yeah, it's all very confusing and tricky. And also, like, if you're going to create a lunch, if you can turn water into wine, can't you turn loaves and fishes into something good?
Right.
Lasagna.
Yeah. Get some mayonnaise
for
on there. Yeah.
A turkey cranberry sandwich, with a little
get
kind
some
of
chipotle aioli on this thing.
Yeah, like a little dill cream cheese. It's really nice. Cut it in triangles. Shows you care.
Lord, it's
cut
not
the
even
crusts
toasted?
off.
You can't afford to toast some bread?
Be a good host and cut off the crusts, right? What a dick.
All right. Well, there you go. Jesus' miracles. Let's move on.
All right.